We are back now with Greg Vettel, the director of the Northwest Art Center here at Minot State University. Greg, thank you again for coming back and being on the
Yeah,
program again.
it's always fun, and I enjoy the opportunity to be broadcast out there. So
Now, you've been on the program before, and so this is a sequel of sorts to that. I want to ask you about the faculty art exhibit momentarily, but before we get to that, I did have a question for you.
yeah,
So, you're a maker of things, right?
I consider like both the art that I do, and it's kind of ties in with my love for just like hands-on work and making things. I work with electronics. I like to build computers. That's been a past hobby of mine. I'm really interested in combining like electronics and like three-dimensional objects with art too, and kind of like mixed media sculptures. But then also looking at like 3D printing and that kind of almost like maker space type of mentality. Yeah.
I may have to ask you for a favor sometime. I have a Raspberry Pi, a Raspberry
Yeah.
Pi computer. I need to make a case for it. You've seen those old classic Super
Yep.
Nintendo,
Yep.
Nintendo cases?
I've printed a Raspberry Pi case. It hasn't been one of the SNES or NES ones, but I have several Raspberry Pis that I've put different programs on or used for different things, different OSs. So with the faculty exhibit, one of the interesting things is it's a biennial exhibit that features all of the art faculty at Minot State and what they're currently working in, what mediums, what series they're producing. And the interesting thing about this year's faculty show is there's a lot of variety from photography to mixed media collage to printmaking, sculpture. There's ceramic sculpture as well. So there's a lot of variety, and it showcases kind of some unique ways to approach some of those art forms too.
So, who all is involved in the art show?
So we have Bill Harbort, who's our chair of the Art Broadcasting Professional Communications. He also is our graphic design professor. He does these kind of like lowbrow mixed media collages that incorporate a lot of pop culture elements. Some of them he like pours resin over the top of and coats, and there's a lot of like symbolism and collage elements, and they're brightly colored, sometimes garish, and they're great. Andrea Donovan is our art history professor, and she does these really kind of sublime, like brightly colored, in some cases, somewhat abstracted landscape paintings. They're acrylic paintings. Linda Olson has mainly ceramics in the show, ceramic sculpture. She's been influenced by kind of like Chinese celadon sculpture. So she has a lot of like vase forms that have that celadon green and blue glaze. But then she's also, conversely, she has two digital projections that are in the show. So there's some incorporation of some digital work. She has a photographic series that's digitally projected, but then also two videos that play side by side from a projector. So that's kind of an interesting kind of like cross-disciplinary pieces. And then Ryan Stander, who is our photography professor here at Minot State and also one of the co-directors of Flat Tail Press, his personal work recently, he's been exploring collodion process photography, which is what you would get like the old tintypes and wet plate photography. But he's working with that very, one of the original forms of photography, but he's presenting it in a really kind of like contemporary way, and in which you're looking at the tintype photographs reflected through a mirror, so it kind of obscures, and it's a whole different way of kind of looking at that. And he has several series in the show that deal with kind of like exploring a contemporary version of that collodion process photography. And then Micah Bloom, who is our painting, drawing, printmaking. He has a couple of different, and his also widely vary in terms of process. He's got oil paintings. There's an oil painting series in the show that are just these wonderful, they're portraits. And it's one is a self-portrait, the other are portraits of his family. And he's paired this very realistic, well-crafted, figurative portrait along with an abstract composition focusing on color and geometric and organic shapes, very abstract, but there's one that's like a a diptych, one for each of the family members, and it's a great series. He also has a really large format cyanotype on fabric, and then a sculpture completely covered in rainbow sprinkles. So that's an interesting one to
Rainbow
see.
sprinkles.
Rainbow sprinkles, yeah. It's a bust, a human bust, and it's in a big tray, and it's covered in sprinkles. The title of the work is Nonpareil.
Nonpareil.
So it's pretty good. And then I'm forgetting myself, but I like to explore of like science fiction and technology and those types of themes in my artwork. And I like printmaking is one of my favorite process in terms of traditional art. So I've worked a series of 8 prints that are influenced by various science fiction stories. They kind of tell a story as you go through them. And they're like pigmented inks, water-based inks, but then silkscreen over the top.
So what are the stories that you're telling?
Well, and I get this from my father, but I've loved like the old golden age and silver age science fiction stories. John C. Campbell and Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury. So it's almost like, in an abstracted sense, a space opera story, but it's a parallel for like personal discovery in life, but also kind of tying in with our discovery and exploration of the planets in the solar system. So there's 8 prints, and one of them is tied to each of the planets. Sorry, Pluto, I left you out.
Yep.
So,
Pluto still has fans out
yeah,
there.
it does. It does. Maybe I'll do a 9th one sometime, a little smaller.
So as you were describing Bill's work also, I was thinking it sounded like it was reminiscent of Andy Warhol.
Yeah, and he does, like there's a lot of that kind of like that postmodern approach to collage and taking like pop culture elements and incorporating it. One of Bill's pieces utilizes found object. So there's a baby that's in this resin, like a little baby doll, and then it has the head of Gene Simmons on it, like above there, and it's the title of the piece is "Pop Bitten, Pop Alive," and it's this very large collage set inside this kind of like ornate, little bit gaudy frame, and Bill works with like stencil and airbrush. He also has a piece in the show that's a silkscreen print and airbrush combination. So he's incorporating a lot of these mixed media elements into kind of like these pop culture collages.
So how long is this exhibit going to take place?
The exhibit is up in the Northwest Art Center. It's in the Walter Peel Gallery, the main gallery, until March 27th. So there's plenty of time to go see it, plenty of time to look at what we at the Minot State Art Department are making, producing, and exploring, and I'd encourage people to go see it. So it's a good exhibit. We also have an exhibit in our outer gallery, which is an exhibit of mixed media collage. It's called Preserving History, and it features kind of like the famous, infamous, and sometimes forgotten women throughout history. So that's by artist Jamie Azevedo, who until recently was of North Dakota, but she's now in Savannah, Georgia.
So those are 2 exhibits.
Yeah. Yep. One in the outer gallery, one in the main gallery. So we have enough space that we like to run, as much art as we can cram into the place.
Well, Greg, thank you again for being on the program.
Yeah, thank you. It's always fun to come and talk, and I look forward to being on the show again.
Sounds great.